dark, dark tomb there was a dark, dark street, and in the dark, dark street there was a dark, dark office. In the dark, dark office there were some dark, dark stairs, and down the dark, dark stairs there was a dark, dark room, and in the dark, dark room was where the worst wrestling tropes go to die.
Hello, I'm Ross Tweddell from Cultaholic Wrestling, and welcome back to Straight to Hell, the show, of course, where my illustrious guest offers up lists of their pet peeves from the world of professional wrestling. Then they all get sent down straight to hell to rot for the rest of eternity. I've whacked out the singing voice because my illustrious guest today is Matt Rehwoldt, formerly known, of course, as Aiden English of the WWE and, of course, of Rusev Day. I do miss those days. And I'm not being funny, right? This might just be the most interesting episode of Straight to Hell in the history of Straight to Hell episodes. I can't thank Matt enough for being so open about backstage things in WWE. I'm sure you'll find this one very interesting indeed. So without further ado, here's Ross and Matt. Thanks, Matt. So Matt, thank you very much for joining us today. How is life at the moment for you?
Life, we were just talking before that is kind of, it is a day-to-day, week-to-week thing, as I think it is for many of us with everything going on in the world. Can't think too far ahead. You never know what's going to be shut down once again and everything. But all things considered, honestly, I'm doing all right and having fun exploring a lot of things outside of wrestling at the time. So, yeah, I'm doing all right.
Good to hear. So one of the new things you've been doing, and I've seen crop up on my YouTube page recently, is your YouTube channel, Drama King Matt. Everybody watching this video, go and check it out. There's all kinds of stuff on there. Reviews, advice for young up-and-coming professional wrestlers. We got a particular series going I'm enjoying. That is just sort of like stories from backstage from your time in WWE, clearing up massive mysteries. One of those big mysteries, I'll not spoil the video here, go and watch it on Matt's channel if you want to find out what happened, was you crying. Is it a 2-week thing or a 3-week thing where you got put on the list by Chris Jericho, you started crying, not like in a comedic way like Christian, like a genuine sort of, I feel bad for Matt, or Aiden at the time, obviously. I feel bad for how that's going down. But we learned in this video on your channel, that that came from you going to Vince McMahon and pitching what was a good gimmick. I won't spoil it here. Go and watch the video. But how often does that happen where a superstar goes to Vince McMahon and pitches something that is good on paper and then that gets twisted into something that maybe isn't quite as good?
I wish I could say like for sure, but based on my interaction there and things I've gotten from other people, I'm not going to say like all the time, but probably at least 50-50. Because I will say that, like, and I talked a little bit about it in the video, but just in general, you hear all kinds of crazy stories about Vince McMahon, and many of them are true or at least half true. But all the crazy stuff is real. But I will say that the minute you get alone, like one-on-one in a room with him, he's very cool. He's not screaming. He has some crazy ideas sometimes, but he's very matter of fact. He talks to you. He wants to listen. Like, he's kind of a good guy to talk to. It's just sometimes hard to get that time. Yeah. And it's hard, there's so much going on, all this stuff. But yeah, so like he's usually pretty good and he's good at listening. I would say either A, depending on who you are, he'll take it into consideration and next week you'll find yourself doing something pretty cool. B, he'll take it, what we call the old pull and twist. He takes your idea and then like out the other end comes crying.
Yeah.
Or the other thing is you get heard, which is nice, and then nothing happens.
Right. And
whether that's he simply forgot or they realize they can't do it, I don't know. But that happens probably the most. Because people have pitches there are lines outside his door every single week. So I don't pity him in that regard. Everybody's trying to get to the top and has the next great idea to make them champion, right? Or to put them at the top. So more often than not, you're probably gonna have to keep knocking on that door. If you think going in once is gonna get your pitch or whatever over, you probably get another thing coming.
So is that quite literally every single week there's a queue of superstars outside of his door just waiting to pitch ideas? Or is that just, is it every week? Because we read the dirty sheets on the internet every single week and Raw plans change at the last minute. Vince McMahon rewrites the show from top to bottom. Is that, you think, maybe down to it, just the queue of superstars pitching maybe better ideas than what was there before or something like that?
I mean, some of that, yeah. Like when you hear about the last minute rewrites and stuff, maybe because somebody brought something to him or to the attention. Sometimes it's just because that's the funny thing. These scripts are written like there is a writing team in Connecticut they have a deadline. I think of usually like for Raw, it needs to be done, I think by Wednesday or Thursday. And then they have like a meeting at court just to go over it themselves, and then script is sent off. But then they go over it again at TV. And I don't know, sometimes whether it's, I think I remember because I was in the meetings for a little while on commentary. I'm pretty aware, like Vince does see the scripts beforehand, but I don't know if he just kind of breezes through them and then it waits till TV to really like go through it, or he's a business guy, but he's also this weird kind of, creative genius or madman or whatever. So sometimes I think it just hits like, nope, never mind. This like a painter who's 90% done with his painting goes, no, tears it in half. Like my brother was a painter for a long time, and I went to art school. He literally like just had this whole collection of these, I think, really cool abstract paintings, and he decided he hated them all, and he burned actually a lot of them. He didn't want them to exist anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. So Vince McMahon is like this business tycoon, but you forget he's kind of like the creative mind behind a lot of WWE. There's of course so many other people, but like, so there's still that like, which I think he would have related to with the Drama King, the mad artist. I thought he would have really latched onto that gimmick. Because that's kind of him in a sense too.
Maybe it was just the general mess of maybe the paint that might have happened. That might have put him off.
Maybe.
That's so interesting to hear that, because just obviously I'm an outsider completely, and just the perspective of like what you hear in terms of what goes on, you just think that superstars are told that's what you do, and no matter how good or bad it is, and you just have to sort of take it and do it to the best of your ability. But it's sort of refreshing to hear that people want to stand up for themselves and make sure it's as good as it could be.
Yeah, and I mean, so as you can expect, that's true, but there is kind of a pecking order, so to speak. Like Roman Reigns is going to get top priority to come in and probably a little bit more ear time and consideration than when I went in. But like I said, if you're in there, he's going to hear you out. He will chat with you. But as far as like how much weight your ideas or your influence will have is going to depend on where you're sitting on the card, where you are in the business, kind of thing like that. So not everybody's, but he does try. But like, man, again, that's Monday and Friday. If he's there, sometimes he is, sometimes he's not. There is that line. Everybody's trying to get a word in.
Well, it's refreshing to hear, but I've got to go back to the mysteries because there's another big one. I hope you weren't planning to do this as a video, but your hair at WrestleMania 34. Could you tell me the story as to what? Because obviously people don't know. You appeared earlier on in the night with a full, luscious head of hair. Then you came back out with Rusev later in the night, and it was all gone.
Yep.
What happened?
Actually, I did just do a video on it. I believe last week. I just posted it, so you can check out the more long form. But I'll give you the quick version here. The reason was you call it a luscious mane of hair, but I was struggling with that luscious mane for a while. My family history is all bald people. It's like mom's side, dad's side. I was doomed from the start. But so in that time in the Rusev Day thing, I was always trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do with my hair. But I was kind of letting everything grow. I was letting the beard grow. I was letting the hair grow. And I knew I had like my hairline was moving back. And I was like, okay. But I'm like, well, if I just like, I'll just start slicking it back because at least it'll look all clean. Kind of like if I do that. It's funny because like me and Baron Corbin would talk about this a lot. Now you see where we both are because he had the same thing. His hair, he had long hair, but it was moving back and back. So I'm like, just keep slicking it. It'll at least look decent. I knew there was something back here, but I didn't know how bad it was until I had a match on SmackDown. There's a shot. I saw a photo the next day of me taking a bump from behind and my long hair had flipped up. Big old white bald spot. Like, just looked horrible. It looked like I was wearing the world's worst wig. And I'm like, oh God. I'm like, all right, it's done. It's time to cash it in. I'm pulling the plug on this. I'm done trying to keep it. So I was like, at that point, I knew Rusev was, I think it was going to be in the US title match. And I hadn't like been confirmed, but I was pretty sure I would be the Andre because that's usually the spot for if you're not in a main match card, everyone's in the Andre kind of thing. So I was like, all right, I might get a little twofer here. So I was like, I want to do that. I'm like, if we're going to do this, let's do something fun with it. And sure enough, they said fine. Because you have to run anything special by like TR and everything. So it was like, yeah, I'm gonna get new gear and I'm gonna shave my head. And they're like, okay, it's fine. Which shows you how much consideration they had for me going on. So they're like, I don't care, do whatever you want. All right. I could have come out with a middle finger on my tights. They probably wouldn't have noticed. So yeah, so luckily I was getting eliminated first. I guess that was predetermined. I would have asked for that anyway. It made it easier because did that, ran back, changed into my new tights, ran to the hair and makeup department and had him do it. And actually in the video that I drop on YouTube, I found it, thank goodness. I had old cell phone footage from the day where I'm just like, holy crap, and everything like that. And so you can check out the long form story on YouTube. But yeah, and then just boom, out comes new gear, new hair or lack thereof, Aiden. And I grew it back a little bit later on, but then I knew long term it had to stay like this.
So is that whole process of changing your look drastically, is that as strict as it? Because we hear stories all the time of superstars have to approve it and it goes all the way up the ladder then back down because obviously merchandise and action figures and stuff like that have to be changed. Is it as strict as it sounds from the outside?
Again, I mean, everything is relative. Like it's pecking order. I mean, you know, if Roman Reigns, if New Day, if, you know, someone, you know, Seth Rollins wanted to come out in a, you know, bright yellow wingsuit at a pay-per-view, he's probably going to have to get direct from Vince McMahon, like either hell yeah or no way. But like me asking to shave my head was probably, you know, to the TR, you know, our TR guy, probably to one, you know, lead writer or producer who probably said, yeah, okay. Like I was literally like, I'm not, my action figure or whatever and all that kind of thing isn't going to affect things as much as someone who's much more marquee front and center. So it's all relative.
Speaking about being marquee front and center though, WrestleMania 34, got to go back to that night because people who watch our channel know I was a massive fan of Rusev Day. Loved it from top to bottom. I couldn't get enough of it. Thinking back to WrestleMania 34, Rusev should have won that US title match, shouldn't he?
I mean,
the crowd, it was all there. It was all there waiting to be done.
There were a lot of, and I think I've finally gotten over it because I'm always very, and if you hear me in interviews, I'm always very like, well, you know, hey, wins and losses and it's all TV. It's fine. When you're in the business, you try not to, but there were a lot of opportunities for the Rusev Day to have, I think, key wins and stuff like that. And wins and losses don't matter. It's all entertainment. It's all telling stories, but sometimes they do a little bit, you know what I mean? They help a character change get over. They help culminate that kind of thing. A lot of people, like our tag title match at Clash of Champions a few months prior to that would have been a great time for us to do a run with that. WrestleMania with him in the US title, absolutely. And then you kind of come around, I thought, again, when we kind of actually really did turn babyface and had a title match with New Day in the fall, right before we split, people thought, okay, maybe here's where we turn him and make a full babyface run and everything like that. And those, I think, would have been good opportunities to kind of to make a big statement with that. But as has been said before, the powers that be just didn't seem to think what was there that everybody else did.
Because obviously you see the reactions from the crowds. That speaks for itself. That surely should be conclusive evidence as to how popular that act was back in the day. And you read the reports, I think there was a period of time where the Rusev Day t-shirt was the biggest t-shirt seller in the entire company.
It was Rusev sold us. I remember when he told me, it was the number one. I don't know for how long. It might have been a week, might have been a month or whatever, but it was the number one t-shirt seller in the company.
I've still got mine. Were you ever given a definitive reason as to why you weren't allowed to go like fully, properly babyface? Because you mentioned the New Day before. And when they started out back in, I think it was like 2014, 15 time, famously, they were heels. And then organically, because they were so entertaining, they were allowed to turn babyface and had one hell of a run as a babyface trio. Why wasn't that allowed to happen for you and Rusev back in the day? Were you ever given a reason?
Fantastic question. Yeah, no. I mean, like, and we talked about, God, what a great, that was always the great example. I mean, even because we did a lot of work with New Day as Rusev Day and everything. They would talk about that all the time too. Because I'm like, we're obviously not the same as you. We're totally weird and different. But just the idea of like, we're this team thrown out there as heels, but we're such a weird, like an interesting, unique package, just like New Day was, that the audience couldn't help but kind of just have fun with it and want to turn it into a babyface act. And so I'm like, in that regard, like I feel like it's ripe for a switch. And I think, I don't know. To answer your question bluntly, no, we were never given a reason. If I were to surmise, I think Vince McMahon just had Rusev. You know, we all have seen he loves his foreign heels, his big brooding, coming from across the world to beat up people. And I think that was just locked in his head. Like, that's got to be who he is. He's the Bulgarian brute, the crusher, the destroyer, the blah, 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 super athlete, all that stuff. And as much as people love, I don't know, I think he was just, because there were so many times when we both would, or Rusev would go to him a lot and be like, look at this, look at the t-shirt, listen to them. And he just didn't seem to, he just was like, no, I don't think that's I don't think it's a thing.
I honestly don't understand how that, because he sits backstage still, doesn't he? He's just outside the curtain there. Surely you can hear the crowd.
It's like sometimes there's and because I do not believe, a lot of people think like they reference like the old Zack Ryder thing and the word like, oh, he doesn't want anyone to get over organically. Like, he just hates that. I don't think that's true. Any business person in this center, you want people to get over. You do, but like I do think if it goes against, it's not that they're against things happening organically, but if it goes against a hard set idea in their head, or in his head especially, I think he has a hard time letting go of that. I think he's as creative and wild as I think he's maybe a little stubborn. In when he feels something is right and he's gonna stick his ground. And sometimes we all know people like that. Sometimes when they're challenged on that, instead of opening up, even despite the evidence and everything coming down, it makes you dig your heels in even more and you just fight harder. I know as a kind of a stubborn person, I've done that to people. Ask my wife. So I don't know if it's a case of something like that, where again, that's all my best guess. I just think he had this idea of Rusev and there was no changing that.
And that's a massive shame. We all lost out on something there, because it was fantastic back in the day. But I was watching your interview with Chris Van Vliet, good pal of the channel here. Rusev Day Indie World Tour. Any updates? Obviously, it's a bit hard at the moment, but any updates?
No, I mean, not that you're right. I mean, it is very hard. I mean, there's really nothing outside the major television companies that's running for the most part. So still, an opportunity for that, anything like that in the future. Although I have also gone on record as saying, so I think maybe for a certain, independent show or something like that, that could be fun. But everybody, I will put this out, everybody asking for, Miro Day in AEW or something like that. Man, you guys don't want that. You think, people, you think you do. I don't think you do though. It wouldn't work. Would I love to work with him in some way capacity with him again? Hell yeah. He's a great guy, fantastic entertainer and competitor. So it's just, he's a top talent. So, and a buddy of mine. So of course, but as far as people reunite and make it happen the right way, it's it's not that simple.
Yeah.
And I say that lightning can't strike twice. You can create something new, but don't try to recreate, especially when you're in a new company. No matter how good it is, I promise you this, no matter how good it is, people will always go, oh, this is the other version of the WWE thing that they did. And when you're trying to build something, especially in a new hot company like AEW, you want your stuff to be original, to be yours, to be better, and not screw it. We don't need to even have a thought of what happens over there.
Yeah.
So that's my one rationale for the people asking for that. But would I love to work with him in any way, shape, or form? Hell yes.
We need to see you two as a babyface pair, and maybe not doing the sort of Miro Day stuff, but something. Because let me tell you, just as a fan, from my perspective, his current gamer stuff, it's not working for me. You need to go and save him.
I know. Hey, I mean, again, the phone is on.
Tony watches this, of course he does. But what are your plans more in general for when the world does get back to normal? Do you have any plans sort of set in stone maybe for professional wrestling, or is it maybe something else you're going to do when the world is back to normal?
Man, it's hard because in this time, like when I haven't been wrestling and haven't really been part of the wrestling world, it makes you think, okay, well, what else is out there? You know what I mean? What other opportunities are there? You'll never fully take the wrestler out of the wrestling ring. You know what kind of mean? Ask Ric Flair, you know, you never fully retired. But but honestly, any opportunity with wrestling, I think for sure is on the table. I'm no concrete plans, but I'm open to all opportunities. I really wouldn't mind, honestly, getting back into the broadcast side of it too. I really enjoyed my time doing that. And I think there is in certain parts of certain companies and everything, I think that department could be buffed up a little bit, could be boosted. And I think I could bring something to the table there. And I really did enjoy that. And then outside of that, it's all these side things I'm doing. It is Twitch streaming. It is, but it's just the world of digital, like streaming and like games, and not just like, hey guys, just come and hang out, watch the games. Like I'm studying esports. I'm watching broadcasts and stuff like that. And I'm watching the business side of it too. And like, this whole lockdown at home thing has made it grow already. And it's going to explode even as we come out of it. So like, it was already exploding, but like atom bomb level stuff, I really do. So that's something I would be, again, in broadcasting side of thing. A whole nother bag of worms is my whiskey stuff. You know, who knows what's going to come out of there. So like, I've got a lot of, you know, fingers in different pots sort of thing. So hopefully a lot of opportunity.
And let's speak about whiskey for a second, because I like whiskey, but I can't do the big boy, you know, manly stuff neat. How do you get yourself to that point where you can just go, whoop, see you later? Is the training involved? Wonderful you ask. Because on my other YouTube channel, Wrestling with Whiskey, you think I'm spreading myself a little thin here? But Wrestling with Whiskey has its own YouTube channel. That one I've had for about 3 years. And actually, I did 2 different videos. One on how to, if you aren't able to drink neat, I tell you how I did it. You know what I mean? How I kind of got to the point where I could drink neat, because I couldn't either. I was lucky if I could drown it in Coke and I would still be like, ugh, I taste the alcohol. Like I was that guy. I admit it. But now I'm drinking 130 proof bourbon, neat. So I did. There is a video on there as well, and then there's also a video on, once you're able to do that, how to go about like taking it to the next level and like nosing aromas and flavors and how to like analyze what you're drinking and stuff like that, and getting really nerdy like me. So yeah, check out Wrestling with Whiskey on YouTube as well. So just in case just before we get going with the straight to hell portion of the show, are there any sort of like proverbial indie darlings of the whiskey world that I won't know of that you would fully recommend?
Like as far as like brands?
Yeah, just sort of like lesser known stuff that is amazing and should be a lot bigger than it actually is.
There is so bourbon is huge. So like over there, I think the big whiskey, obviously in the UK and in Europe and everything, is still Scotch. It's still single malt whiskeys and stuff like that, or blended whiskeys. But even though bourbon is getting more and more exported and stuff all the time. But over here, bourbon is huge. It's having a moment. It's skyrocketing in popularity and everything like that. So I think there's going to be some really cool. The big brands are exported to like Europe and to Japan and all this stuff. But I think you're going to start seeing new up and coming brands like there's a company called New Riff out of Newport, Kentucky, which is fantastic. They're still I feel like, because I've been going to them for years, but they're still very much on the growing part of it. There's a brand called Bardstown Bourbon Company, which is doing awesome work on all levels, and they're growing way faster than anybody expected them to. So for me to the whole world, keep an eye out for bourbon. I think especially, like I said, overseas from the US, it's going to continue to grow because it's already huge here. And I think that's just going to carry over.
Magical stuff. I love whiskey, me. Anyway, on to the straight to hell portion of the show. You have 5 things to send down to hell to do with professional wrestling, and they will burn forevermore. What is your number 1 pick to send straight to hell?
All right. So I'm trying to think of number 1, like, and with 5 being the main event. 5 is the biggest one that has to go, right? So number 5 would probably be, this is the tough one, because I'm like my top 4 were really jumped out to me. But number 5 would probably be referee, and I'm going to get some heat on this, but like the referee leniency that I see in a lot of matches. And like a lot of people, because WWE did do this for a while, and I think a lot of people got annoyed with it. And I think there's a balance. So I think referee, especially on the independent level and some television companies, we lean into the wrestling's performance. We could do whatever we want thing, right? Which is true. It is an art form. It's not a sport. So we can kind of paint it how we want, but it's still within the world of like sports. So there needs to be some kind of rules. And so like when I see people in a regular one-on-one matchup or whatever, they're on the outside for 5 minutes. They're fighting through the crowd, or somebody in the heat of the moment does hit somebody with a weapon, and they go, "Oh, I'm not supposed to DQ." Okay, so we'll just let it go. And I'm like, I think tag ropes, I think are a small thing. You hear like FTR talk about it. Those guys are old school tag, but it's such a great element of the match, and it makes another thing. Keeping 2 feet on the canvas when you tag, little things like that. I think make it better and make it for more creative storytelling. A lot of people hate it because like, oh, they feel so handcuffed. Which sometimes if you're like, I don't want shoot referees who are just trying to like count me down and like mess up the match. But when you have at least like a more defined set of rules, then you have to be creative to get around them. Or like, especially in tag team wrestling, like things like the ropes and being in your corner and all that stuff makes it so that like your tag spots are so much more clever. And when they hit, and again, you watch guys like FTR and stuff, it's like, oh my God, how did they turn the ref, tag here, do this, blah, blah, blah. That stuff I think could be tightened up a lot. So I know I was more of that addition, but like get rid of leniency, all the leniency in, refereeing and rules and matches.
So just to play devil's advocate here, what if I said to you, referee's discretion?
That's of course.
That's the get out clause, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And so I feel that's my point. I'm like, and that's fine. I feel like we have referees' discretion 3 times a night. And there's there's 5-6 wrestling shows on a week now, and so it's like, if it happens in a big main event, oh my God, the referee says, I got to let these guys settle their issue. We've got to have a winner here tonight. I'm going to let this go. But when it's match number 2 and there's not really a story, but they decide to brawl up the ramp for 3 minutes, you're just gonna like let it go, or it's like that. I guess that's what referee's discretion for sure, but like with anything, let's pick and choose where we use it.
I'll tell you what, though, this is a thing that's come into my consciousness very recently with AEW tag matches, especially. I'm not an old school guy whatsoever. I love my silly stuff in professional wrestling. But in those tag team matches especially, you're just watching certain things happen and you're just going, that shouldn't be happening. And I never found myself doing that before. But AEW tag team matches have really brought this point out of me to do with referees' discretion, because they're just willy-nilly every single night.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, that's what I'm saying. Just tighten it up like a little bit. Because I'm with you. Like, I love silly stuff in wrestling. Oh my God, it's entertainment, folks. Yeah. Absolutely. So like comedy spots and all this stuff and anything, but like just maintaining, like I said, just a semblance. It doesn't have to, like, I'm not looking for shoot matches. I'm not looking for shoot refs and everything like it. In WWE, they did kind of do that for a while. They were giving referees bonuses for shoot counting people down.
Really?
Which, like, I get to a degree, because it's not, everyone's always like, oh, the ref messed up our spot. I'm like, if you didn't kick out, I'm sorry, that is on the talent. You should know your own spot, like not 2.9. If you do it 2.9999 and you don't hear the refs count and you think, I don't know, that's on you as a talent. You ask me, but it got a little bit too much. Where like I think refs were like fast counting 10 counts because they wanted their $500 bonus or whatever it was. So like we don't need to do that, but just bring it in a little bit. That's all.
So obviously, without naming any names, did anyone get caught out by this referee rule back in WWE?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was kind of a company-wide thing, and it came down. I remember hearing about it when I was still in NXT, and we had, and I can't confirm, like, I didn't see the check or whatever the referee got, but like I remember a couple of them telling me, it was like yeah, like there was this, and even it was usually even just like small house show matches in Florida or something like that. It was like, yeah, like either I don't remember if it was like a separate check or like they added it to their paycheck that week. It's like, yeah, I had an extra like $200 or whatever because they didn't listen to my 10 count, and the match ended up being a count out and stuff like that. So it happened in NXT too.
God, just imagine the amount of like Florida screw jobs at those house shows, and then splitting the bonus with the talent at the end of the night. That's amazing to hear. Yeah. So there we have it. Referee's discretion, leniency, all that stuff has gone straight down to hell. Matt, what is your second offering to go down to hell, please?
So we were kind of talking about earlier. For me, and this, I don't know how the creative process works in places like MLW, AEW, Ring of Honor, whatever, Impact. But from my experience in WWE, we're talking about pitching ideas. So I think the creative process within WWE needs an entire overhaul. So right now, especially like I said, if you're not a top talent and can't get a ton of Vince McMahon FaceTime, it's hard to get an idea through. Most of us who are on the middle, lower end of the card or whatever like that, which makes it guys who aren't like top main event guys are probably 75% of the roster, or those guys kind of in the middle and the lower end. Most of them don't get to deal with the head writer of the show or with Vince McMahon a lot. You have to go through what they call writing assistants. Now, before I'm not putting heat or bashing in the writing assistants, they don't hold a lot of sway, and they're very new, and they don't want to ruffle feathers. So like, even if you have the world's greatest pitch, that, they'll toss a little bit out in a meeting. And if somebody goes, they're not going to be the ones to fight for it. Let's put it that way. And I understand it, because they're trying to just establish themselves. They just want to keep the show running, kind of things like that. But when you're a talent and you have ideas and that's your one throughway, and you can I remember trying to talk to the head writer and stuff and you would, but it's kind of like a Vince McMahon thing. It's like, oh, okay, but I got to go write this promo for Roman or whatever, anything like that. So it's hard. It's hard for mid-card talent to get their ideas to the proper level on a regular basis. If you're able to score one of those meetings with Vince, great, but often you're not, and your only outlet is this very entry-level writing assistant. So I don't know what it is, but that process needs to go. There needs to be a more streamlined way of getting ideas across.
What would that be, in your opinion?
Oh God, I don't. It's hard because the immediate thing is talent needs a through line to someone, whether it's the head producer of the show. I know on SmackDown for a long time it was Brian James, Road Dogg, right? Or someone like a Bruce Pritchard now maybe. So and a lot of people that you have their email, it's a pretty standard corporate email and everything like that, but they get hundreds of emails a day. I don't know if there needs to be a particular in the 21st century a talent only portal for creative and stuff like that can get, because I know it's a huge roster, but at the end of the day, if we're just talking about the main roster, it's 150 people or something like that. It's not it's not the entire company. It's not NXT. We're just talking about Raw and SmackDown. Yeah, and I wish I had a better one, but I feel like somewhere more direct from talent to head creative. And then the writing assistants are still there to help you flush out promos. They can write the basic thing and then take it to you, and you can collaborate on how it's going to go. It's more just technical work as opposed to them having to float creative ideas from talent directly.
Right. And so how does lower to mid card talent sort of make things happen for themselves? You know what I mean? Is it just maybe through social media, then someone sees that and then they sort of take it off on TV, or is it? How do you make things happen?
It's by hook or by crook. You know what I mean? It's you got to get creative. So you can pick, I did it. We did have a couple when I worked with when we were with the Vaudevillains, we are because writers kind of have rosters of talent. This writer has these 6 talent. This writer deals with these 7 talent. So our guy, he was great. His name was John, and he always had time for us, which I do appreciate. And not a lot went through, but there was 1 or 2 times where I remember, for example, it's a very small thing, but 2017, I believe, Elimination Chamber. There was a American Alpha was tag team champions. There was a gauntlet match or whatever. I think originally on that pay-per-view, there was not supposed to be a tag title match, or if it was a very simple straight up tag match, on the kickoff. But we have been having so much fun with these 8-man tags and stuff on house shows that we were kind of let's get everybody on this pay-per-view. People like the Ascension, people like Heath and Rhino. And I'm I think they deserve a shot. Let's do something. We tried to do a tag chamber, and that year they didn't want to do one, but we're let's do this match. Let's do a gauntlet match. And the gauntlet match went through. So sometimes the straight up, writers to producers, it does work. It's few and far between. Sometimes it's like you said, You get something on social media that gets a spike. And then sometimes you can go to like the .com people who film like the little interviews you see backstage that aren't always on TV, but they're on Instagram, they're on Twitter, they're on .com, they're on YouTube. They're actually pretty, they get kind of not creative freedom, but it's not seen as like prime time. So they kind of do get like leeway to be like, if I go up to them like, hey, can I film this promo like after my match where I'm like freaking out because I'm pissed off that I lost or something like that. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's shoot it. And then they'll put it up on .com that night. And so sometimes little things like that'll take off because you never know, like some of that YouTube stuff, some of that .com stuff, we feel like here in America, like it's like, yeah, nobody really pays attention to it compared to like television. But sometimes in like these like foreign countries where they don't get Raw or like they have a Raw replay at 3 a.m. on Saturdays is their Raw, like somewhere in Asia or something like that, in Africa. But they get all their stuff from YouTube. Mm-hmm. So if they're scrolling through the WWE YouTube or to catch Raw highlights, and then they see an interview with Aiden English where he's throwing his scarf everywhere, you might get more eyes on that internationally and stuff like that. So there's a lot of you got to get creative. That was a long-winded answer to just be like, you got to get scrappy and get creative.
Why do you think they have lots of teams of writers? Because we hear about the old days in the 90s where Vince would sit around the pool with Pat and Jim Ross and Jim Cornette and whoever else. Why is that grown into so many different teams of writers, do you think?
I don't know. That's probably just with the changing nature of the business. I mean, the company has gotten so much bigger than it was then, and there are so many more arms to the company. So Vince McMahon, I mean, he's still a CEO of the company. So he's now, back then, he was trying to make the best damn wrestling show on the planet. And I mean, they were doing things like making merch and running house tours and house shows, but it was like, they were just a really big wrestling company. But now, since then, we've gone public. We have, there's the network. There's huge charitable organization things. We're doing like more with video games, more with all the business has just branched out into so many things. So there's so much more to think about and worry about, and all with it being publicly traded. So I think it's like, to kind of put a cliche out there, they had to kind of go Hollywood. We need teams to help us delegate some of this stuff because Vince does not have time to sit around the pool with 2 producers and write Raw every week. It's a full-on Hollywood production 3 times a week. You know what I mean? Four times with a pay-per-view. So as everything got bigger, you needed more people to help delegate the work.
And so just on our YouTube channel, just to see what the process actually was, I did a video where I actually applied to be a writer for WWE. And at no point did they ask, do you like wrestling?
Nope.
Do you think that's a bit of an issue?
Yes and no. Because, and I get it from there. At the end of the day, again, you're a big company. I say wrestling fans are there. They will weigh in and they'll complain when it's bad. But more often than not, they want to complain again next week. Yeah. So they're there. Wrestling fans are in your bubble. You've got those. Those people will be there 90% of the time. Even when you piss them off, they'll go away for a couple of weeks. They'll come back. You've got them in the bubble. We're trying to get these people. So sometimes you need voices who can come in from comic books, from Hollywood. Now, we don't want to turn it into straight up like sitcom soap opera. We know it's still our world of wrestling. But if somebody can come in and be like, because sometimes you can get in the bubble of wrestling, and even fans can do that where it's like, well, why aren't they doing this? And I'm like, because we've done that every week for 30 years. Like, we need to do something different. What is Game of Thrones doing? What is The Office doing? I know some wrestling fans don't like to hear that stuff sometimes, but a fresh perspective, like, hey, we don't really see this in the wrestling world, even though people love it in movies and everything. Can we bring an aspect of that here, and maybe it can appeal to a wider audience and stuff like that? So, while I get you, sometimes it's good to have an outside kind of experience.
And just one more thing in terms of creative process. You obviously went through the transition from NXT to the main roster. And while it maybe doesn't apply to you, a lot of times the main roster version of the NXT character, it loses what made them special in NXT. You sort of stayed similar when you got to the main roster, but a lot of times a big portion is lost. Why do you think that is? It just because obviously NXT is obviously a lot bigger now than maybe even when you were there, I guess, because obviously it's on USA Network now and stuff like that. But Why is there bits like such the Viking Raiders obviously spring to my mind straight away, just changing their name completely? Why is that? What, in your opinion, why do you think that sort of disconnects there between NXT and the main roster?
It's hard. And I would even argue, like, yeah, our like even for us, for the Vaudevillains, our characters, yes, technically stayed the same, but they're like our story didn't get told the way it got told in NXT.
Right.
Our presentation didn't get really the same treatment it got in NXT. It wasn't. So that does happen a lot, and it's harder with. I think it's easier now because like my generation of NXT was born out of this kind of a funky, weird time, that 2015, 2014 time, when on top of like just like your badass matches with like Sami Zayn and Cesaro and Neville and everything like that, we were trying these not goofy, that's not a right word, but funky characters. We were trying, the colorful characters were kind of bad, almost from the 80s, 90s. We were trying them in NXT. That your CJ Parkers, your Vaudevillains, Lucha Dragons, the Ascension, even Bo Dallas was so goofy. Bo Leave and everything like that was so much fun, and they was colorful and different. And that audience, and maybe because it was so small and intimate there at Full Sail, like, and it was the same people every week, every month. It was this cult kind of atmosphere, and they loved it. The weirder, the better for them, right? It was like. What? Like, I remember when we came out, like, what the hell are these guys? These time traveling goofs? Like, what's going on? But they were like, yes, these are our. And so you get to the main roster, and you're not on the network and in front of an audience of 500 at Full Sail. You're in a much wider audience. I also do think that the boss man and some of the creative up there don't understand everybody in NXT, and they just go into like, for us, we needed vignettes. We needed stuff like it. Enzo comes out, does soft, all this stuff. They already had a good run in NXT anyway, but he comes out, gets to do that for 5 minutes. Yeah, every week. Hell yeah, they're gonna get over because that's funny, it's entertaining, and you're getting an idea of who they are. We come out with a 30-second black and white entrance, and then you just have us like. I remember the New Day feud when we finally were set to face them for the tag titles the first time. And we had a couple weeks to build it, and the only thing they did that was remotely character-based was when New Day came out of like the time machine, making fun of like the black and white stuff, and we jumped them. But I know New Day are funny, but that they did the character stuff, and then we just came out like any generic heel ever and slid into the ring and beat him up and smashed him and stuff. What? Sorry, this is getting me worked up. That because they didn't understand, because me and Woods would sit and talk about, let's do this, let's do the old like you tie me up on the train tracks, like an old Western movie, and we're like, hey, similarly, we tie Woods up on the train track, or they were doing the bootios, let's steal the bootio, and let's hold it hostage, and we'll do vignettes backstage where we're like taping the mouth of the bootio shut, and Woods is like, no, like all this like hilarious, entertaining stuff, and then we can still get to the match, and we can have a badass match, and but like all back and forth week after week, but nope, we cut promos. Saying, and again, we were new, so we couldn't really change them at that time. Was, we're gonna beat you because we're manly, and then again we jumped them like 2-3 times, like just run out there, hit him with your finish. Yeah, really get aggressive. That was gonna get aggressive and beat him up. And it's like, okay, nobody cares that we're doing that because they don't know who we are. We're these two weird-looking guys beating up the New Day. So that's when you have character, and nowadays they do have more. They're swinging back to like real life kind of characters, your Undisputed Eras, your Johnny Garganos, Tommaso. They're still very interesting, but they're much more straight laced and real and kind of raw. So it's a little bit easier to translate that. But man, at that time, when you had those unique, NXT personalities, you needed to flush those out some more. And I think they were just kind of going by the formula of, well, bring them up there, get them some heat, and it'll be fine. And like it doesn't work for things like that.
Just quickly, you mentioned Gargano and Ciampa. They transitioned to the main roster, having had a 2-year blood feud where they just killed each other basically for 2 years in NXT, turned up on the main roster. They were tag teaming together. It like just that disconnect from everybody, whether it be a more flamboyant gimmick like yours back in the day, or those two straight-laced, like just wrestlers basically. It's a massive disconnect that doesn't make any sense from the outside perspective, at least anyway.
Yeah, and it's at that time it was NXT's hot, right? NXT's everybody's talking about. Let's get some of those guys up here. Give me some of those top guys. Give me and it's like bring those here. It's like, and nobody's gonna sit like, yeah, okay, yeah, they hate each other. Yeah. Give me the 4 biggest stars. You know what I mean? Because people will love to see them on Raw.
Yeah, maybe it just made no sense. Anyway, is that 2 things we've done? That's a long second point. Was it the third
yes.
one?
No, that was the second. Forgive me, man. When I get going, I can get going.
No, I just feel guilty taking up your time. If you want to rant, you go for it. I'm here all night.
No, you'll know when if I start tweeting. But if I'm juiced up, I'm good.
No, I'm going to let you go. What's number 3, please?
Number 3 is a little bit more simple, and again, it's such a cheesy one, but man, super kicks. They got. I love them too, and I always did like a low super, but the super kick with a big old slap, they're great. Shawn Michaels, changed the generation and everything, and they're great. It's such an easy thing as long as you're flexible enough to get your leg up and can get a slap. It's always a nice little pop in a match, right out of it, bam, and it works. But now it's just like the Bucks did it with the super kick party, and then like Usos kind of adopted that, and then just also looks a ton of talent. Just do them, and it is like one of those things. I remember hearing Arn Anderson about Arn Anderson did the DDT, right? DDT was one of his deals. Like that stuff was, or Jake the Snake, he would talk about too. That was his finish. It was over. Now guys do it, nip up. They get DDT and then they nip up and they go to the next thing. And it's like, I do sound like such an old grizzled old timer, but I do think of all the moves, I know there's a lot of things changed. So like a DDT is not a finish anymore. That's fine. But yeah, I think the super kick is just the one thing, like it seems literally every single wrestler does. And I think send it away, at least for a while. Give it to 1 or 2 people, ban it from everybody else. Let them get a little bit more creative. I don't care if you're doing a knee or, a roundhouse kick or something, but just drop the super kicks for a little bit.
How does a moveset happen in WWE in professional wrestling? Do you just literally look at the roster and go, he does that, I'll make sure I do this? Is that how it works in the company, just to make sure you're not overlapping? Because obviously the super kick doesn't apply here, but by and large, people have different moves.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is still like that degree of like when people see someone else doing something, it's kind of funny, even in this day and age, like I said, it feels like everybody does it, literally everything, super kicks especially, but there is still that thing of like you're watching backstage, you're like, looks a lot like my move. And then and if you're the senior guy in the roster, maybe you meet them in Gorilla afterward and you pull them aside. I had that once or twice in NXT.
From who?
No, honestly, so I think the only one I can remember was Leo Kruger. One time for like a move, it was just like, and he was actually very nice, but he did give me like the dad, like he's like, I know you're out there just trying to figure stuff out. Like it's kind of something I do. It's one of my signature things. Like you're like, I'm okay, but like you're gonna get a little heat if you keep doing that. Especially when you're newer and stuff like that. He was very nice to me, but that stuff still kind of happens. But ideally you should go down the roster and be like, who doesn't do that? Who doesn't? But more and more, it does seem like people are just like, I'm going to do what I do. And I don't care if anybody else does it, which is a little bit of a shame, but it does feel like that.
And how is it literally just like with the super kick as the example here? Is it just seeing how like success the Young Bucks have and the reactions they would get with the super kick party and all that, and then people just going,
I think so.
I'm going to use that. Is it just that, or is it?
I don't know. I haven't had an in-depth conversation with somebody about like why they chose to start doing it, but in thinking of my young wrestler head, is like, yeah, like, oh god, like it looks good. It's a relatively simple move. You can do it to anybody. Anybody can take it. You get a good slap. It is that pop, that ooh. It's an easy ooh ah kind of spot. So yeah, I'm just gonna start doing it.
So you can confirm it's not the first move you learn at day one at the PC.
No, it was not.
It's weird how it works, though, isn't it? Because what do you think the next move will be that'll go? Because when I was growing up, the DDT was The Rock's sort of like third, fourth, fifth move. He would do that. He would do the kick up, then he would go off and do a people's elbow or something like that. It's super kicks now. What do you reckon's next? How does this sort of thing, the secular nature of everything?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I don't know. That's a really good question. Super kick, it's like the move. It's like the move of the decade, I guess, or something. Yeah, DDTs have gone that way. Like, I want to say, I mean, again, I feel like there's a lot of options, but it'll be power bombs or something. Or people just like lock up power bomb. Power bombs are things, but even things like spine busters, which were pretty big, devastating moves. Some people use them as finisher. You know, Arn, it was like a finish and stuff like that. But they seem very transitional now. Stuff like that, but you never know. It's just because everything is done so much. So I'm not sure what the next one. I'll have to be on the lookout for it.
You'll have to wait a few years and find out. So there we have it.
Yeah.
Super kicks have gone straight down to hell. You heard it here first. Matt, what's your fourth offering, please?
I'm volleying back between what I should have, what's number 4 and what's number 5. For me, I think I'll keep it the way I have it now. So number 4, it sounds silly, but I also did a video on this on YouTube. Kayfabe. It is dead, and I explained this in my video. It is, and I think most people do get that, but there still seems to be a contingent of the audience and fandom that just can't seem to accept that wrestling is in the same kind of category as most entertainment, and that people have to act like their character on Twitter all the time and on Instagram. And if they post a picture of their family or if they're doing a YouTube thing, it takes me out of it. I can't take you seriously as the Fiend or as this or as a heel or as a babyface if you're posting this. It's so terrible. They're performers. That's why I think like WWE stuff should take away doing feuds and starting things on social media.
Yeah.
You can announce it. Hey, I'm facing so-and-so this week, or WWE puts out a huge mark, but like the bickering in character, and then because then the next tweet is going to be us them doing this because they're doing a charity event together and everything. So like, don't try to that. I don't like that either. So maybe even that's even more specific as opposed to just kayfabe, but like the social media setup for storylines. Get rid of it. Because kayfabe's gone. Let these people be the ambassadors and like performers as humans on things like social media. Let them put the charity forth, show their family. Like those are the people you want to fall in love with as humans. And then when the red light is on, boom, story time. I use this comparison. People don't get mad at Ray Fiennes when he's not Voldemort. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I said it. Sorry, Harry Potter fans. But if he. Not that I could see him, but if he started a YouTube channel or something talking about his favorite books, you wouldn't be like, I can't watch Harry Potter movies anymore because I've seen him be a nice guy talking about books. Or if he posts a picture of his wife on Instagram, you go, he's not, I don't buy Voldemort anymore. So, and like, I'm sorry, wrestling is in that category now. We're a TV show. It's been wide open for years, decades even, that this is a show. We have storylines and characters, and we're trying to entertain you. It's in this sporty, like live entertainment, like venue, but it is a show. And so for me, that is a very, very big thing.
It's a weird concept, isn't it? Social media with professional wrestlers in WWE and places like that, because it can be used to great effect. Like you think of Becky Lynch straight away and how she makes certain feuds all the more interesting just by the things she tweets. So it can be used as a positive sense. But also, it's weird because I remember a few years ago, I think everyone went abroad for a tour or something like that, and it all kicked off because Roman and Strowman put a picture like in the Roman Colosseums or something like that, at the height of their feud, and everyone kicked off, and even me just sat here just like as a review wrestling for a living, and just like even I was like, should they be doing that? But then you think I think it might be in 2018 at the time. So obviously things have gone so far. So is the answer just having a wrestler social media account and a real life social media account? Is it as simple as that?
No, actually, you know what? Maybe because as a wrestler, especially if you're in somewhere like WWE, they don't control your entire account, but you have to put it under your wrestling name. Like, so like, right. Roman Reigns is Joe. His Twitter name isn't Joe Anoa'i or whatever. So like maybe, but I still think, man, I think people just need to let it go. It's not 1980 anymore. We don't have to pretend to hate each other outside of the TV. You're coming to watch the TV show. That's where the story happens. That's where the action happens. You know what I mean? Again, I guess it's kind of, there's a cool, like you said, it can be used to great effect. And so like wrestling is one of those unique mediums where, yeah, like on a TV show on, I'm trying to think of let's go back to like Game of Thrones. Yeah, you're not going to have Kit Harington tweet at so-and-so to get you hyped for the next week. The Night King. Can you imagine the Night King Twitter account? Oh my God. That would have been awesome. And stuff like that. So I get it is a unique opportunity with wrestling because it's that kind of straddles that line. But for me, it's just my personal taste. I think social media is like any other social media. You get to be a person, promote all the company stuff, promote the shows, all that stuff. But don't expect everyone to pretend to be their character online all the time.
So it's no sort of directive from the powers that be saying you must always be your character on social media? Is it just free reign, whatever you want to post?
It's pretty free reign. I mean, they will. So there is like a clause. I mean, like if you embarrass the company, you can be fined or suspended or terminated. There, like with a lot of public companies with people in roles like that, there are clauses and everything. It's like you are ambassador, you are representative of the company. If you start spouting off racist stuff and cursing, using horrible language and everything like that, we can take action against you and stuff like that. So, you got to be, but they're not occasionally, social media team or creative team will be like, hey, can you tweet this out? Whether it's, hey, I'm wrestling so-and-so, or it's, hey, Connor's Cure begins, our thing begins this week. Check out this website. So you get like directives, but nobody's like, tweet this like this at this time now. So it's pretty free reign.
And when it does come, I don't know if you've been involved with many big spats on social media, when you've been doing stuff on TV and trying to sort of build it up on social media, are you clearing stuff with each other beforehand? Because just going back to Becky Lynch again, you do sit there and think, has she asked them if she's okay tweeting that out before she put it out?
Yes and no, right? So I think some people, like I said, it's a creative team thing. Like, hey, guys, start tweeting at each other. Sometimes you're already in a story kind of thing, and you're like, hey, you want to like. Usually, you do run it by whoever you're working with, and it's like, hey, let's do some stuff this week in between TV. Let's go back and forth with things like that. Or, yeah, so like even though I'm saying this, I did take part in it. I remember when such a small spot, but they were doing a U.S. title tournament, and I was facing Xavier Woods in round 1, and so we knew like 2 weeks ahead of time. That we were going to face each other in this little tournament. And it wasn't like a marquee storyline. It was kind of like just a little thing. We just both happened to be in it. And so, but we were bored at house shows. So we're like, you know what? Let's do it like we're campaigning for US, champion. Like it's a political campaign. And I literally did like a video like that where you're like watching me walk, where it's like, hi, I'm Aiden English. I want you to know that I'm here for your best interests. And like you stop and like, here's Eric Rowan. He thinks I'm like, we would do this like backstage, and we did like campaign videos. Like he would get dressed up in a suit at home and be like, hello, like I'm Xavier Woods. And you think like, and we would use old clips of like when we wrestled and like NXT stuff and everything. It was actually really funny. So like, and we had a ton of fun with that. And that was not approved by anybody. we just did it.
That's probably the best things happening, just organically, stuff like that. So yeah, there we have it. Is it social media usage with wrestlers, or just social media in general? Straight to hell.
No. I love social media, but social media in wrestling story.
In wrestling story, there we have it, the official title. So now it's time, I do believe, for the main event. I'm just going to sit back and let you go. So the floor is yours.
So like I said, I was going back, but this was either going to be number 4, number 5, because they're both kind of big to me. But this one, I actually just spoke about it on Twitter the other day. My time in commentary showed me a lot, and I've seen a lot of less than stellar commentary across the wrestling world. And so one of my biggest pet peeves is because I learned how good and how important good commentary is to a wrestling match. And I think it's almost like It's like the bass line in a rock song, man. When you don't always notice it. It's not always, it's the thing front and center because you're watching the action, you're watching the moves. But when it's gone or when it's bad, it's like, oh, what is wrong with it? Something is off about this whole experience. And I learned so many things from people like Vic Joseph and Nigel and Tom Phillips and Michael Cole and everybody while I was there. Commentary and commentators are not there to get themselves over. They are not there. I'm all about having fun. There's place for fun and sticking in a rib or a joke here and there. But like when I hear commentators like joking and just pissing off during a wrestler's entrance, especially when they are like an up and coming talent whose story we don't know all the way, whose character we're still getting to know, who doesn't have a ton of TV time. And they're just BSing back and forth. And you spend this guy had 90-second entrance. And then by the time we get to, he's in the ring and the next person's music playing, you're like, oh, so-and-so's in the ring. And now here comes this guy. Anyway, it's infuriating. It is absolutely infuriating. And it's, to me, I feel so much for the talent. And that's something I tried so hard to do on 205 Live. And I actually really love that because that show I felt like didn't get enough of the spotlight. Those guys worked so hard and are so talented, but are kind of in this little corner of WWE-dom and I'm like, you know what? I can't make the spotlight bigger, but if people are going to be here, I'm going to make it seem important. I want to tell how good these guys are as someone who has in-ring history, like current in-ring history, not 10, 15 years ago, like right now. Tell these guys' story, put them over, all that stuff. And it's so lacking in certain places. And you're not there to get yourself over. You're not there to just have a good time. You're there to put this talent over, tell their story, and tell us about them.
How bad are the voices in your ears that we always hear about as fans when you're on commentary in WWE?
So 205 Live was breeze. No voice at all. Vince McMahon's not there. He's gone. He doesn't watch 205 Live at the TV because that's always after SmackDown, and he's gone. He's the main event of SmackDown's over. He's out. But either Michael Cole or Tom Phillips would often stay, and they'd be back there in the producer. So Tom was awesome, and a lot of people don't understand or don't realize Tom is kind of in charge. Michael Cole runs the entire announcing department, but Tom is like the manager. He's like right underneath Michael. He kind of delegates and does the day-to-day like managing and coaching for most of the announced talent. And so he would stay there and he would buzz stuff in, but he was in and out. He'd be like, make sure you talk about this. And they have a little spy cam on the announce table. So it's fun. That was always fun too, because you could always mess with him backstage. Because like he'd say, or like I'd tell a joke about Tom on commentary while I'm out there, and he's like, and he's freaking like screw you, like right when and I can give him the finger or whatever, right to the little, because nobody can see that camera, and so you'd have a little bit of fun with that and everything like that. But he was always great. I didn't have a lot of experience with Vince McMahon on commentary. Obviously, he has his preferences and everything. When I did do that brief stint of SmackDown during that whole Saudi thing, he was in there a couple times, and just to like kind of the same thing, but he has a much more gravelly voice and like low, and sometimes you can't hear him. So he'd be like, sorry this, when I'm like this. And I'm like, what is that? I can't say. I'm like, I'm on mic. I can't be like, what did you say? And he'd go, say this again. And I'm like, man, Bayley looks like she's going to win. I'm like, what the fuck did he say? And so like I had to come backstage, and like he wasn't angry, but he's like, was your headset on? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, the one ear was a little off. I couldn't hear all of it. I apologize. He was like, it's okay. But it was just funny. So he didn't scream and yell, but I mean, I know he gets pretty intense in some people's, depending on the story going on. If it's one that he's invested in or has a really strong hand on, he wants things very a specific way.
Yeah. And this might sound weird, but in terms of the directive before you go out there for a show, for commentary, are you told to rein it in a bit? And I'm only saying this because the commentators of today in WWE are very different to the ones, say, I grew up on in the 90s, in terms of like being a true character, if you know what that means. If that's making no sense, I do apologise. But it seems like it's a lot more reined in. Like the play-by-play announcer, for example, is sort of like just has to sort of sit there, obviously get the things over that they have to get over, and the shill the things they have to shill, and plug the things they have to plug. But am I making sense to you?
Yes.
Yes. You know what I mean?
I hear you. So, I mean, that's probably true. And I don't have a clear answer as to like why that is. I'm trying to think of times when I was told if I was told to like rein it in or whatever. And I don't think I was. And again, it was 205 Live, so we had a little bit more freedom. We had a little less eyes on us. But also, with most of the teams, SmackDown being the exception, are 3-person teams now. So before, like, you go to the good old JR and Jerry the King Lawler, two-man team. It always works best when you do have kind of a babyface heel dynamic. And so JR was the play-by-play guy. So he kind of just fit into the babyface role. So he kind of did both. When you have 3, you usually your middle guys, your play-by-play. They're supposed to be usually as straight-laced as they can be because they're calling the action. And then I've got Angel and Devil. You know what I mean? Like. Yeah. That's what, like, me, Vic, and Nigel, I thought had a really good vibe with that. And that's kind of the dynamic now with the 3-person team. The play-by-play generally, I guess, will skew babyface just because since they're straight-laced, they don't have much of an agenda, but they're gonna, like Vic Joseph would occasionally be like, well, like come on, Nigel, like what? How can we let that happen? And then Nigel can give his heel agenda. Turn it to me, I can give the babyface agenda, stuff like that. So I think that's why you see that more out of your play-by-play guys now, because we usually have a 3-man team, and you got to split it up that way. But I think it's just because, like, the same thing, like I said, I think they're trying to avoid you're not there to get yourself over. Yeah. We're not there to have your character get over, A lot of the time you had, like, Jerry Lawler was this huge over-the-top character who came to commentary. So he had to play that up. And I mean, Jim Ross is just such an intense announcer. He kind of became his own character. So Corey Graves, to an extent, you find your little personalities. So it's been, I really did. I love me, Nigel, and Vic had a really good dynamic with that. With Nigel was a very good, strong heel. And I was a babyface, which was so weird for me. Having spent like 7 years of my career as a heel nonstop. And now I got to be like, hey, Nigel. It was the first couple of times it was like, knock that off. Like, like, hey, this guy's working hard and everything. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, that's where, like, I remember Tom had to be like, dude, you don't have to be like a white meat, douche, be you, like, be intense, but just like, you're just going to kind of side with this guy instead of that guy. So yeah, I don't know why. I would imagine just because you don't want too much attention to be drawn to like I said, you want it to be key, tell a story, but you don't want it to draw too much attention away from the performance.
And just before we end things, Matt, if I could ask you, you can tell me to bugger off if you want to assemble, of the people who are active today, your 3 best commentary team, your dream commentary team of the people active today, who are you going for? Or is that too much of a difficult question?
Oh, it's so hard. Like, I've thought about this a lot. So, like, it's so hard. I mean, again, I've had a couple of different, like, trios and even duos. I've always wanted to try a commentary team of me, Vic Joseph, and Corey Graves. Mm-hmm. And because I got used to the babyface thing, I think Vic is the most underrated play-by-play guy in the business. I think he's phenomenal. And I've always loved Corey, and I've always wanted to work with him. And I grew into my role as like a baby. I think I can be that's my one biggest gripe is the babyface color commentators, especially in WWE, are sometimes a little like white meat. And I think they need a babyface commentator with a little bit of an edge. Yeah. Who will, instead of being like, hey, like, don't say that. Like who can go to the heel commentator and be like, shut the up. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I've been in there wrestling that guy. Like, you're an idiot. Like, with a little bit of an attitude, who can stand up to like some of the, because I think some of our heel guys are pretty, are your Wade Barretts, your Nigels, your your Corey Graves, stuff like that. So I have a great relationship with Vic, and like I said, I always love Corey. So that's a team I always wanted to kind of assemble.
So there we have it. Straight to Hell's Over. Matt, I can't thank you enough. This has genuinely been one of the best episodes I've ever sat through. Thank you for being so open. I didn't expect to hear some of the things I've heard today. I can't thank you enough.
No, man. Thank you for letting. Like I said, when if I don't want to talk, I won't. So if you hear me rolling on and on, it means I'm excited and interested.
I really appreciate it. I hope everyone at home enjoyed the episode. Matt, we touched on it earlier. Where can we find you? All 100 different places that we can find you.
No kidding, right? Like, luckily, there's a million platforms. Luckily, it breaks down to pretty much two things. My side project is Wrestling with Whiskey. You can find that on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Pretty much every week, putting out content there. But then on the flip side of things, Drama King Matt is also my standard Twitter and Instagram, but I'm got a YouTube channel putting out once or twice a week. And then I'm on Twitch, Drama King Matt as well, every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and usually Sundays. So come hang out.
Go hang out. Please do. Thank you very much, Matt. That's it for this episode of Straight to Hell. I've been Ross Tweddell from Cultaholic Wrestling, and we'll see you next time.